Hello, I am Aziz Haniffa, and today it's our pleasure to chronicle the American journey of Dr. Lalita Kaul, Professor of Nutrition at the Department of Medicine at Harvard University for the past 4 decades. Lalita, it's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you.
And let's go back to how you came to be in the US. I believe your father was a diplomat with the Indian consulate in New York, and you were a 17-year-old. And then when he was finishing up his tenure and it was time for him to go back, you were a rebel who said you want to stay back and then go to school in the US. Can you speak to that?
I certainly was a rebel. When I think now, I said, Lalita, how did you do? I hope your daughter doesn't do the same thing. My father said, "You're here. We are here 3 years. If you find some diploma course," so I joined, and then I talked to various people. They were used to have a lot of diplomatic parties. Said, Lalita, you don't want to go just with a diploma. Take a degree. So I rebelled. I said, no, I got a degree. And that's when I told my father, I am not going home without a degree. And then Mr. Ganju, who was his contemporary here, so he got the admission, all the paperwork, I got credit. And my father was very, very upset about it. And thus began the journey.
Because you were insistent that you wanted to stay back and go to school here.
No, take my degree.
Yes, yeah.
So I had diplomatic passport, and my father insisted I go after my BS. After my BS, I got my MS scholarship. So I said, no, I want to do MS. So again, I kept on, and then I got my Master of Science. Then I went to Columbia, and I got admission for PhD in public health and assistantship. So I went with these documents to India, and first thing I did was change my passport from diplomat to student. And in those days, to getting visa was not a big deal. And Mr. Ganju knew so many people in the government, and I had the admission. And I think Chet Bowles was then the ambassador. I just got an appointment. I said, I'm going. Oh, he called his assistant press. He says, oh, Miss Call, get her. And I got this thing. And then meanwhile, my parents had lined up all these boys. The tradition was to have, see them at the tea and all that. I said, well, I'm not. So I left, and then I came to Washington, D.C., and then began my career journey. I went to Harvard University.
And where you did your bachelor's and your master's degree.
And PhD at University of Maryland,
yes.
Postdoc at USDA.
For many, many years, Harvard had the most amount of foreign students and also foreign faculty,
Yes.
And it was the bastion of the anti-colonial movement, etc. And it had this synced up, and of course, it has some very famous alumni, including Kamala Harris,
Yes.
Our current vice president, and of course, Andrew Young, who a civil rights leader, who was mayor of Atlanta, who walked with Dr. Martin Luther King, and also was UN ambassador.
And this is where I met Martin Luther King Jr.
At Harvard.
I was the president of Indian Student Association. I was very active. Those days we didn't have Indian movies. I used to get them from embassy and show them, go down room to room everywhere. And I loved Harvard, I had the possibility of getting admission and others. Then I told Mr. Ganju, this is where I want to be.
Yeah, what made you go to Harvard University? You I am sure, being the stellar researcher that you are, you had researched Harvard University. And was it the fact that here was a university which had so many foreign students and foreign faculty, and also the fact that in some ways it had been one of the leaders in the anti-colonialist movement, etc.? You made a very deliberate decision to go to Harvard University.
Yes, in fact, I could have gone to George Washington, Georgetown scholarship. So Mr. Ganju said, why don't you spend a day everywhere? It's not written, you have to go there, you can always cancel. I felt so much at home at Harvard. They had this international department, they were so welcoming. But at that time, even Indians were very raised ideas. They say, oh, you're going to a black, even now, you're going to a black university? I said, I'm colorblind. When I went for PhD to University of Maryland, it was all whites. I was the first one in the program, brown person, or they considered me black. And here were all blacks and white. And so my Indian said, oh, they pay you to go there because they're black, So I said, what are you talking
Yes,
about? I
yeah,
pay my tuition.
yes.
I felt so much at home, and at Harvard, I have been both as a student and a faculty.
Yeah, and you were a catalyst in the setting up of the Department of Nutrition, which is today an integral part of the Faculty of Medicine at Harvard. How did that all come about?
Well, Harvard University College of Medicine, they didn't have a nutrition. At that time, the buzzword was nutrition. And they used to get a lecturer to give one or two lecturer. But it was coming up. Now there are so many grants, nutrition and health, because I have written this book,
Yes.
obesity
Yes.
and cardiovascular disease.
Yes.
And now everything, we could save billions of dollars. I have done research. If our population here would eat right, I'm not saying strictly, followed, the Americans would save a lot of money. So then it happened like that. I was working with a consultant company to write grants, where I just wrote grants after grants, took them to NIH. So I had to interview one Dr. Aldada for my grant. So when I went and talked to him, I was with my colleague, he says, oh, Dr. Kaul, we have a job vacancy. We'd like to hire you because nutrition is upfront. I love academia as an assistant. I said, yeah, but he says, please, I'm going to send an interview for you. So my colleague John, I said, John, don't you say a word at work. And next day they say, come for the interview. And they say, if we wait, they will get a clinical people, more doctors. I went and I had interview, and they took me to the dean. I wait outside. He said, you have the job. I was shocked. I didn't think, why would they take me nutrition? And there, first day I came, there was a reception, all the doctors there. They said, oh, nutritionist, you're going to teach us to make cake and cookies. I said, oh yeah, that's important. But I have come here to teach ignorant physicians like you. There was a pin drop silence, and then the next day I was getting all these calls, please give the grand rounds, can I take you for lunch, can I take you? Now whenever I walk, they know Miss Nutrition is here.
And it has been incorporated into the
The
programs
curriculum.
with primary care and clinical
Yes,
physicians.
I'm in Department of Family Medicine and Community Health. So we have 4-year medical school. Now I'm on all the committees. So I made a program like that. We weave nutrition through all the courses. Freshman year, what is balance, what is, and in sophomore year, we go through organ system. Like you're talking about, clinician gives lecture about lung. Then I come at the back and say what would be prevention and treatment. Then we talk about heart. And at the end of the lecture, I give a case. Like if you were a doctor, how would you incorporate nutrition? You have only 20 minutes, so you can't talk nutrition. But as you are examining the patient, and when you are in private practice, you can ask your assistant to bring them very simple. So you can incorporate, look, there are any interactions. And it was very, I started, so I keep on revising problem-based thing, teaching cases after cases. So they like, I tell them the patients like to hear from the doctor. My doctor says, eat this, my doctor says that. So you have to be the role model. And that's why we are teaching you. But if you want your patient to have in-depth, then you can send to a registered dietitian, not any nutrition, because many of them call themselves nutrition.
And you are known for your painstaking research and your extensive research on these issues of obesity, on these issues of South Asians being prone to more heart
Yes.
problems, etc. And you have written 2 highly acclaimed books on
I have
obesity.
actually
Yeah.
4 or 5. In fact, my PhD research was on meal feeding. I work on the rats. Any research before you go to humans, and we called ourselves ratologists. I was at the United States of Department of Agriculture. We wanted to know if you feed, now then we repeat it in humans, if you fed rats only for 2 hours and in the morning I leave cup and then remove after 2, then we had another group called ad lib. We left the food, they ate as they were hungry, and after say 2 or 3 weeks we sacrificed the rats and I had to guillotine them and take the blood from the heart. There was statistical difference. Those who were meal fed, eating one meal, their enzymes, glucose, 6-phosphatase and all, which make the fat, their stomachs were high, they were this. And those who were ad libers, their diurnal rhythm, everything was. We published several papers and I presented this data. Then we went to the humans, others, and those people who just all day drinking coffee, tea or Danish, then having a big meal, they feel relaxed. So you see the difference. Those who eat as they're hungry or eat 6 meals. So this research, then I'm working with my patients. Those who are diabetics, they're hungry all the time, their glucose. I draw the pictures. I said, see, if you eat this like your sink, it gets clogged, stopped. So you have to eat this way. And when they leave, they say, but Dr. Kaul, this is not a diet. I said, exactly. I don't want it to be a diet. You have to enjoy your life. You can't lifelong eat salad and soup. So this is, I get Indian consults, Indian physicians send me, I like roti, I like rice, I like dal. I do it. He says, oh, it's easy to follow. It's not strict. I had some very successful stories and some lot of behavior and psychological intervention is needed.
And you were recognized for all your research, all your books, etc. And you also served in the Clinton White House as part of the Health Information Center.
Yeah,
Can you speak to that
yeah,
experience?
this is when, as you know, Hillary Clinton, she headed the health initiatives. It was much before Obamacare. And she formed a big committee of different disciplines. And they called the Howard University, they had the dentists, physicians, all walks. And then they said, we're looking for a nutritionist. And so my university said, so you join on our behalf. So one day I'm sitting and the call comes, is this Lalita Kaul? This is White House. I almost passed out. I said, my God, what is this? Somebody playing a prank? He says, no, can you come such and such date to the White House? I went there and all this, and they explained. And my university says, I wasn't at you, I can take in during my lectures in between. So once I had to about 10-15 hours a week. And I started there. What we did was, there was a big lobby outside insurance companies. Yes. This was what, 2030? Yes. They were saying that we do not want to change. Yes. And then Hillary Clinton will come, and we were all these volunteers. So one day I asked her, can you sign this paper for my daughter? She said, never do that. My father used to say, he was alive, never do that on a blank paper. Next time you come, bring your daughter's picture. Anyway, what we did, we got all this correspondence, and we had guidelines how to respond. So we will sit at the table. Some were the form letters, and some we had to send to the assistant up, and some were very ugly things, but mostly. And I made friendship there. And then whenever there was a function, hey, come on. So Bajpai came. I was taken. I said, I got to go. They said, we're closing. You're late. I said, I got to see my prime minister. So they hushed me in through the press section. Then all the presidents came, all that, Then one day the incident is, I used to go during Christmas time, be a guide there. I had to go to bathroom. There was no bathroom. And I asked one of the guides there, I said, there is no bathroom. He says, come with me. I don't know what he did. The wall opened. Yeah. This is a true story. Yeah. I went into the bathroom. I said, there was no cell phone. I said, oh my God, what will I do? I'm locked. I'll die. And then I just whispered. There I was. Yes. So the thing we used to get is I could bring my friends, relatives. They didn't have to stand in the line. So my daughter will come with friends, vacation. So somebody will come and let them go in.
And after that stint at the White House a few years later, you were recognized as the national spokesman for the Association of Nutrition and
Now
American
it
Dietetics.
now it's called National Academic of Nutrition and Health.
Yes.
So
And in that capacity, what did you do? You were a
also,
national spokesman who
yeah,
traveled across the
national
country?
spokesman. Yes, I what they were listed, and any newspaper had questions. What are the guidelines? They will call me, or they will come to my office with their crew to interview me. And once the NBC sent their crew, we went to cafeteria, talked about saturated fat. I remember one person, I said, yeah, it's not that you have to give up the food you like, you can have it, but cut it. And the other guy says in the back, but we have one life to live, so I don't care. I said, yeah, sure, sure. I mean, we are not a police country. And I had over 100 people, papers calling. One story is from Washington Post. I don't remember the. It says, how can you help me? I take 6, 7 cups of coffee. I said, you have to slowly, that much are not good. But this was a long program. I worked with her, and she went to 1 or 2, and she wrote a story about it, how Dr. Kaul helped me to go 7 cups of coffee to 1 or 2 cups of coffee.
And you were also a consultant to some of the prison systems.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Oh,
Yes,
I
yeah,
worked in the
yeah,
prison
yeah,
system.
yeah.
They were looking for a nutritionist, to help. And I was young. I wanted to do all. So I went there. There was all these big guards, over 6 feet. I was tiny like this. So they said, no, you got to leave your gum, your cell phone there. I said, okay. I went there, and they were with their guns. They took me to the prison tour, DC, and there was one section where they get only liquid diet. They didn't trust them. Then I had to go to the kitchen. So I put my net, and so they had all these prisoners were assembly, like bread, lunch. Then there was a diabetic thing. There were big pots, and they were stirring and stirring. I went and looked. I said, yeah, the changes came when they're getting weight. They would not, staff was not allowed to keep refrigerators because they would give the prisoners food. I gave them some suggestions, and then they said, we can afford to increase only 1 cent per meal. So I worked and worked, and I presented to them diabetics, and then not so many breads, but yes, bread, their comfort food. So they said 1 cent. I collected all the research, but they had taken from me in writing that I will not publish it. So I still have those graphs.
Non-disclosure forms.
Yeah, then I said I would like to work with the staff. I mean, I don't mean overweight cosmetics, you're not 4 or 6. I mean, which is hurting your health. So they were 90% was there. So I asked who was in charge, can I work with the staff now? So I put firstly to get the general, it was cut out. Yes. They didn't want to do it.
Fast forward 30, 40 years as an established professor of nutrition and someone who has written these highly acclaimed books on obesity, heart disease among South Asians, a propensity for the high incidence of heart disease among the community we all come from. And in today's world, where obesity has been recognized as a health issue, and in today's world where diabetics were getting medicines like, and getting these injections like Ozempic, Mounjaro, and now they have a weight loss medicine injection called Wegovy. What are your thoughts on all of that? Is this a revolutionary method which has finally found some sort of panacea to attending to diabetics as well as weight loss? Or do you feel that nutrition is still an integral part of the whole broad spectrum of diabetes, health disease?
Nutrition is still integrated part, because a cousin of mine who's also a PhD, so he was saying, why don't you give Ozempic, everybody, obesity is gone. I said, you can't. Why did I write this book, Multidisciplinary Approach to Obesity? It's easy to say, eat less, exercise. It may work with the younger person. But as you get older, your metabolism is different. You have to look at the family history. And what is your history of, you have to individualize. The idea came from the Hillary Clinton's book. She wrote a book called It Takes a Village to Raise a Child. So I was brainstorming. I said, yeah, it's a multidisciplinary approach. It's your family, your environment, your food, your this thing. So Ozempic, some people I know, they could not tolerate it. And they don't give it as an Ozempic for weight loss unless you are diabetic. And there are success stories, but there are some failure stories too. So nutrition you can combine. I have one patient, she didn't have much reaction to Ozempic, but she's also doing nutrition. So I don't talk, when I talk to nutrition, only eating and don't eat this. I have behavior modifications program, which is fitted, as you say, one glove fits one person. So it is fitted. So when they come to see me first time, I want the diet history for a week. Like weekend, some people eat distant. What time you ate, what you ate. Then I want on the counter. We have had some people taking supplements and die. Very close friend of mine in community. He asked me later on to analyze. I said that killed him. Not all food supplements are good, but now they are deregulated. So I can go and buy, and you have to give your problem. So I am teaching medical students to ask your patients when you see there's what supplements they're taking, foods they're eating. So then when they come, so I have their doctor's latest report, medications they are taking, and the food diary. Then I sit with them and then I go over it. I individualize it so much that they say, oh no, this I can do it. So even if you take Ozempic and all these new things, they are add-ons, they are, things.
The supplements in a
Yeah, they are supplements. You have to still work on what are the issues they cannot get out.
And how important is incorporating exercise into it, in terms of walking, in terms of jogging, and also things of doing weights and things like that? Because they say that muscle loss is quite possible when you are into some of the diets, etc. How important is exercise?
Extremely important. In fact, before COVID, I used to get invited by law firms, corporations, or just schools to give a layman's. I tell my medical students now, the biochemistry, how this is that. Common person doesn't know. So you have to learn to translate. Even doctors may not anything, you have to straight away tell them what is good for them. So that is very important. Exercise is very important. This is the time when the most obesity is finding. In 2030, we'll have 1 billion people nationwide, whole world obese. And there's a difference between obesity and overweight. Overweight is up to 20%. After that, obesity is going to affect your heart, lung, every disease.
And it's unimaginable in today's world, and especially in the US, you get 12-year-olds who are having type 2 diabetes.
No, I have.
Has the internet and social media and television and the fact that they aren't getting out as much as they did during our years when we would play a lot of games?
We didn't have anything.
We didn't have all this social
I had a
media.
mother brought her daughter.
This kind of sedentary lifestyle.
10-year-old, and she says, I have diabetes, I don't want. When I took her diet history, she says she's eating 3 times fast food. On the way she picks up, on the way out, in the evening.
Because these are working women, sometimes single family.
No, their child, 10-year-old.
Yes.
Mom doesn't have time. Mom leaves 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
I come, mom is at work. And what do? They put the TV and the fast food. So then I had to talk to her. I said, can you do one food you take with you, like lunch you have time? Then slowly,
weaned him off the fast food.
yeah, like I had a patient, she was smoking and nothing was working. So I worked with her for 1 year. Then she comes one day, Dr. Kaul, I'm not smoking. I said, what program did you? No, I didn't go. I talked to you. I told her first in the beginning, if you are taking 10, let's take one less. Till we came to the point. And same thing I do to the weight. One of my staff members, she says, oh, I really gained. I said, okay, she's say 170, she should be 150. I mean, not if we took the calculation, she should be 130, which is never going to happen. You have to be realistic. I said, okay, I wanted to lose 3 pounds and keep it. We are not going to rush. Take you 1 year to reach the goal. So my approach is more realistic, based on the lifestyle, the family.
And based on science. And
Yeah,
yeah,
science.
yes,
I
yeah,
have written many papers.
yeah.
Well, CDC and Preventive Health, they suggest, I just gave a lecture last week, they suggest half an hour every day. I suggest even if you skip, even if you do 5 days, it's okay. If you are not I take the history, if you are not a marathon runner or walker, some of my patients live in the downtown city. They said, "Oh, Kaul, we're afraid they are shooting drugs downstairs to walk." I said, "Okay, in your apartment." Now, I published a paper. After 4, walk 10 minutes. It doesn't require insulin. And you walk 10 minutes after each meal, 10 minutes after breakfast, 10 minutes lunch, dinner. But if you skip one of them, you still would have gained 20 or 10. And American Heart Association accept. So those of them I say just do that, and don't sit, every hour just get up and take a walk to the kitchen. Now I had a grant from World Bank many years ago. Their problem is their long hours for workers, and they wanted to know how to incorporate exercise. And so I had a different plan for somebody is a morning person. So, okay, can you go 15 hours if you have never exercised? If it's a good weather, walk. Don't buy expensive equipment if you don't. Just walk in the house and apartment, or do this. And those who are working at Harvard, I said during lunchtime, half an hour, our university is hilly, just walk and come down, half an hour do. So I had a solution for every situation. Some of them, they have children to get ready in the morning, they are free. But everybody, based on their lifestyle, I was incorporate exercise. So it was a very successful project. And again, they didn't want me to write about it.
And in addition to your long history in research and in academia, in your own small way, you're also a philanthropist. And I know that almost 15, 20 years ago, you co founded the Ganju Foundation. And over the years, you have been helping in the education of young Kashmiri girls in their education. Can you speak to the Ganju Foundation and what was the purpose behind it in terms of? I know you are very committed to your native land of Kashmir.
Yes,
And
yes.
this
But
program.
I always say I'm from India, then Kashmir. But I have some Kashmiri friends. They'll say I'm from Kashmir. Where is Kashmir, India? But
And what's the purpose of the Ganju Foundation? One of the main
Ganju,
foundations to help the women.
not
Yeah,
necessarily women.
yeah.
Ganju Foundation, he died 95 and 96, and we wanted to create something, a living memorial to as he was called Mr. India, and he helped so many people, students, even now in coffee shops, they didn't have fees, so he helped them get admission. They would come, stay for the night. So at that time, there was some congressman, he was working on the Congress. So I was distraught. He was my mentor, and actually he helped me against my family wishes to go further studies, and he again, helped me. So they said, let's make a Janki Ganju Foundation, and it would be, we have all, it's a 501c.
And one of his good friends, Sam Pitroda,
Oh,
was
yes.
also one of the
Yeah,
co-founders. And
yeah.
yeah.
So we we so far sent 50, 60 scholarships to these. Not only it's limited there, we do in USA, those who have all the grades and aptitude but don't have the money. So we give it there too. There we have one or two, I give it to KOA because it is a lot of work. And these, to help them finish their education, get the job, and then help their families. They get only 2,000 rupees a month from the government. They live in the computer. Then I help some of them girls get married. You have to have this thing. So I sent money. Then one person I was in Srinagar down with cancer. I send the treatment. If they are legit cases, it may not be always in the foundation. I would use whatever savings I get, I would use them in my own little way. So I help Srinagar, Kashmir, Delhi. I even helping a family in Pakistan. Some of the people may not like. I met through this young girl, I don't know, through somebody, she found my number and she called an auntie and all. So she had very, very touching story. 3 kids living in a garage. And so I said, I want you to raise your kids, do the schooling work. So I said, I promise if you do this, I promise to send you money every month, which I do. First week, and sometimes she has extra, somebody is sick, somebody doesn't have. I felt it was genuine because some are, I really feel from the heart that was a genuine. So I felt good about it. Similarly, I have somebody in Srinagar, she has very serious illness, she cannot afford the medicines or fees. So I said, whatever I can help. But it comes naturally to me, nobody says. Like here, somebody says they're collecting, this girl is getting married. Even now they want a dowry, basic thing. They're collecting $10,000. So I said, okay, whatever counts, I can put 2 pennies. But I have this inner feeling, when I know somebody is genuinely in need, and then I just reach like this girl in Pakistan. When she got my number and she put me on WhatsApp, I reached out to her. I said, I haven't heard from you from weeks. How is Zeba and how is this Ahan and what are you doing? And now she's doing Ramadan and then she says we have Eid. So I said, yeah, I'm going to send you some money to buy clothes for your children and for your husband and all that.
And your sense of commitment and dedication, is imbued in your daughter Kavita, who is a physician, went to Duke University, and even your son-in-law Nitin, a lawyer. Both of them, after graduating from Duke, they stayed back in North Carolina working with the indigent, working with those who needed help, legal help. And now, after they moved to Washington a couple of years back, they are still very much committed to doing that kind of work.
In fact, she said when she was working in a Duke clinic, she says it's a hi-fi clinic, it's like a 5-star. But on the side, she was member of this Columbia, where even I gave some money. I even wrote in the will, and they were doing all weekends working with the not necessarily Indians.
Yes,
they were
with
Spanish,
the indigent, the poor, the needy.
If they needed babysitting while they were taking a course, they took all the old computers and did. And then when I got sick 2020, I got very bad COVID, they moved here, underserved clinic in Maryland. She says, Mom, I get less money, but I feel so good.
There's a sense of fulfillment.
Yeah, she says they come bus loads, they're not insured. So when I tell her, look, Ozempic has come, you have so many. She says, Mom, they cannot afford it. So the bus load of people, she goes in the bus, and they don't have an office per se, a doctor like Duke. She would have her own office and own nurse. Or they sit anywhere, they call, okay, Dr. Patel, patient. But she says, I feel very good. Same thing with my son-in-law.
Yes.
And
who could have gone to any white shoe for a law firm and be made partner by now. But
she
he
would have
offers
gotten
legal
more
help.
money.
Yeah.
She said, so in the clinic, she says, we just sit and eat outside. It's a low class, but she feels good. I said, you go. In fact, my own boss was saying that, if she wants, we can interview. You can't order. We are hiring. If she wants, we can interview. No. Anyway, it was mother. Son-in-law, he's also. But these clinics and law firms have been for years sponsored by people. What is their income? People are giving money.
And in addition to all this that you do, you are also a talented artist. You have some wonderful paintings of M.F. Hussain which adorn your house. And you also do, what made you interested in art? Was it a flair that you had? Or did you suddenly start painting and found that?
When I was growing up, my father was in diplomatic service. We went to different countries. Actually, I wanted to be a physician, but the things were not right at that time. So I took a lot of art courses. I was wanting to, my father, I tell my daughter, he says, you won't make any money, you might be known after you die. But anyway, you said you're getting married, so you don't have to worry. As long as you can sign the letter, so you don't need to study. In my generation, I fought it. I fought it. I said,
Because
no,
you're talking 40, 50 years ago,
yo, I
yeah,
just talking.
yeah.
And
You
then
were a rebel at that
I
time.
was
Yes,
a rebel.
yes.
Even my nephews and nieces say, Aunt Lalita, when they do something, what Aunt Lalita did, how did you tolerate it? They forget it. So then when after my PhD is very hard work. And even if you give me a million, if I had to do,
Yeah.
I used to be,
And it's totally different to today's world,
yeah.
where you have Google search.
Oh, we
We
didn't
had to
have.
go to the Library of Congress
Yeah,
to do
I
primary
was in
sources.
library. I wrote my thesis in Library of Medicine, NIH. I used to be 8 to 5 there, and I had this encyclopedias. You looked at it, and our lab equipment was pipettes. You just did with the mouth pipette and then do this. But now we have to do everything. Statistical analysis, we had to add every number. Now you put the program, the whole thing comes out. And then when I had to analyze my data, I had reams of paper to go to the UN. And then these papers came, then I look at them. Why is this statistically significant?
So, was that artwork and things you did cathartic? Was it like a
Yeah,
release?
yeah, it was a really. Once when I finished PhD, and somebody told me it's like a postpartum thing when people, women get into depression after a child. So when I did, I was so lost. I had worked 8 years and everything. First thing they asked me in the meeting, all these people, what is your philosophy of life? I said, to live and let live, to be happy. And anyway, so I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to take any job. Luckily, I had savings, which will carry me. So I already knew, so I took some classes at YMCA. And so I was doing, I put the clock away. I didn't want to know what time it is. So I got up. In fact, I had all the paintings down in the basement. My daughter 30 years, nothing has happened. My daughter says, Mom, I don't want my things. Can you put your things? And so I would get up and paint, go to sleep, eat, paint, and I continued. And then after this thing, so I picked it up again, doing, in fact, I make friends' birthdays, I'll take their portrait, put it on canvas, I'll paint them. So my brother, he went to Kashmir, he took one of the photographs. He said, can you paint it? And so I did it.
And your brother Maharaj, your older brother, has been an immense inspiration in your life, and been a great older brother. He's written extensively on Kashmir. He writes poetry. He has several books, etc. And the fact that he was also in America, always close to you. Can you speak to what an influence Maharaj was in your life?
We are 2 years apart, but he was away from us because my father got accepted in the diplomatic service. So those days, the boys' education was very important, which he resents to this day. He has written a book. He kept him with my uncle in Srinagar studying. Then we came with him. I was supposed to go with him everywhere because my relatives say that it's an expensive baggage you have to carry all the time under the watch. But I still found ways to get away by it. Dance parties and all in Egypt. So Maharaj's influence became when I told my father one day, it's a shame he's not here. He has finished his engineering, why don't we get? He said, government, how much? I said, I can't afford it. Then he says, a librarian, I'll borrow money and get him. So after he came, we became very, very close. And like these days, we talk 3-4 times a day. He said I should have gone into philosophy and writing, but at that time they didn't. So that's why he retired early 60s and writing books. Kashmir is in his blood.
Yes.
And in fact, he goes for drives near Harriman Park. There are all lakes. Every day he has to go for half an hour drive to the Harriman Lakes. And so he has influenced me a lot. And he even dedicated one book to me.
After almost over 40 years of being an academic, a researcher, you continue to teach at Harvard. You still continue to work. What drives you instead of going, retiring and going to sunny Florida or someplace and enjoying like a lot of your contemporaries have done? What's that keeps you driving?
I always like the academic life, getting the feedback from students. And I tell them where you are, I was once there, and feeling them.
And making a difference
Yeah,
in their lives.
Yeah, feeling them. And so every time I tell my daughter, says, Mom, your brain is working. Dad died writing a book with the Nobel laureate on the. But every time I think of, I said, what will I do? I go to lunches and all, but I don't like. But I love to teach. But I'm not doing major research now. I'm writing books. And my chairman knows that. In fact, I joked with him one day. I said, you must be thinking, when is she leaving and you'll have a spot? He says, I don't see any old person here. Who are you talking about? I don't know. So I'm still very active in the university. I go, but it keeps me going. Every day I look at my schedule. Okay, this time teaching, meeting. Okay, I have this. Then I have 3 TV shows on Fox 5 Plus, which I have been doing for more than 10 years. One is on health and nutrition, all up to dates. What is this? Intermittent fasting, what are pros and cons. Then I have Aura of Kashmir, the Kashmir culture, the recipes, the culture. Then I have views and cues, I get an interview. And so
Because I know you're a news person also,
oh my
very
God.
much in the news, yes.
It is in my bedded. My father was in news. Those days there was transistors. He used to take it to the bathroom so that he didn't
Miss any of the
and
news.
At Mr. Ganju's house, we used to get 10 papers every day, 6 or 7. And when he passed away, Sam, Petroda, and myself, we had the power of attorney. First thing, we had to cancel all the
Subscriptions
because
to
the
it.
secretary who was working for him, she didn't bother. So we had to cancel all the. First thing in the morning, I had to look at the paper. New York Times is a must. Then I have different apps. Then I have to have in paper. So even at night, I have till 10 o'clock glued. Then I put my shows. So news is this thing. Once my husband and I, we used to go vacation Christmas week, and there is some St. John, and there I go, no television, no telephone, no newspaper. I said, Dali, I'm going to die here. I said, what's the matter? Enjoy. I said, no. Then we bought an old news, New York Times. Then we shifted to another island. And even whichever part of India, I have to have, not only America, I have to hear what the news is. Because from my father's time, then Mr. Ganju, and then I was so involved in it.
I must get you to speak about your late husband, Dali, who was a cardiologist, and he was such a wonderful, unassuming, very low-profile person whom I had the pleasure of knowing for many, many years. Can you speak to how you all met? How was it kind of a love story? I know it was not sort of an arranged marriage.
No,
how
not
did it?
definitely.
Yeah, how did it all take place? Because we cannot but remember him.
Dali and I met late in life. Dali was already divorced from married. He has nice 3 sons. He was at NIH. He had written books on, he had PhD, MD in India, then PhD here. And he had worked 20 years. He wanted some change. The Howard University went after him that we give you a research professor as even higher. So he came to give seminar. They took him for lunch. I was with my friends. Those days I didn't wear any clothes but sari. Yes. I'll put a white coat and a sari. Yeah. And then he told...
And I must mention, he was Dali Patel.
Yeah, yes. Dali yes. J. Patel. Yes. So, but we talked, when you marry late, I'm professionally known, Lalita Kaul, so I came. He says, I have no problem with that. Yes. And so then he said, then his assistant, Dad, was there. So he says, who's that beautiful girl in white coat? He said, oh, that Dr. Patel. And he said, Doc, you should go. She's single. So then that is how the story became.
So he quoted you, and that's how it happened.
Yeah, we went, but at that stage.
So Harvard University, in a way, was responsible for that.
Yeah, there is like in Hindus, you believe that there is preordained and all.
Yes.
So we went, but I said, now at this stage, I was in 30 to get married and all. But he was, then his person who used to sponsor our talks will go, and even honeymoon, we had invited speakers, we used to go together. And then he told me, I told him the whole thing. He said, no, I want to get remarried, and I want to. And then he said, okay, you have till April 15th. If you don't say yes, I'm going to move on. I go,
Yeah.
and then
He
I
gave
was-
an ultimatum.
I was shaking, I was shaking. What shall I do here? We had very common interests. Politics was our number one.
Yes.
Elections all night, every debate we had to. We like going to the shows and cuisines and just have small gatherings and lot. We loved all that. We loved traveling and all. Everything was hitting. So
All the
then,
stars were aligned.
so
All the
in
stars were
Normandy
aligned.
Farm, which is closed, then I said yes. But I always saying, was it the right thing? It was, we were married 20 years, then he passed away. So it was happy. God above gave me a happy interlude to move on with my life.
Thank you very much, Lalita.
Sure,
What a
thank
pleasure
you.
it's been. Thank you very
Dan.
much.
Thank you.
And I'm Aziz Haniffa signing off till the next time. Thank you very much.